Welcome to the program. There is the People's Bench, and we are coming to you from GenZ here in Riverside, Nairobi. And as usual, I am your host, Fred Ogweno. Another time that I'm privileged to have Mwalimu Odoyo Owidi himself, who says it the way it is. Again, the country seems to be degenerating into anarchy. It started as peaceful protest, but now it is mutating. It is metamorphosizing into something else. We are here to find out more about this with Mwalimu himself. How are you, sir? Karibu sana. Welcome back to the People's Bench.
We are always together.
Thank you. I appreciate.
Yes.
Very smart as usual.
No, this is my weakness, but thank you.
Now, tell me, are we degenerating into anarchy? What is happening in our country?
We is who here?
The country, Kenya. Everything is burning, you know.
You know, the problem I have with the country, Kenya, today, there's certain people in Kenya who think they are more Kenyans than others. But I will keep on reminding them until it gets in, because there are some people who can only use rote learning to learn anything. Kenya belongs to all of us. And all of us should have equal chances of governing Kenya. We must share Kenya's resources equally, including leadership positions. You know, for the last 20 years, we have had Kenya being governed by one community. And I think in their instinct inside, they do not believe that somebody else can govern Kenya. They cannot come and tell us that suddenly President William Ruto, the man we have had in this country in politics longer than almost anyone else, is suddenly bad. And for the last 30 plus years, when he has been in politics, he has never been seen to be such a bad person who cannot govern a country. Even last year, but one, when they voted him, they never saw that badness.
Who are they?
The very people who are organizing these things. You will pick them out during this conversation. Just don't hurry. Today, I went to a media house, and when I was coming out and sat in the car, there were some people chatting behind the car. Na nikasikia wakisema, kutoa tutamtoa, isipokuwa tutatumia nguvu mingi sana. Ingekuwa Raila tungemtoa kwa urahisi. When I heard that, it sent chills on my body. And it was now clear that there are some people who believe that even President William Ruto, they elected as president, ndio wakuje wamtoe baadaye. Today, this evening, I've also had another person, a very prominent Kenyan, saying that 2027 is too far. They want President William Ruto removed now. But there's something they have kept a secret. When Ruto is out, then who? Because you cannot pull down your house. You cannot remove your shade without an alternative. They have this alternative, but they are keeping it away from us. And let me tell you, this thing is going to go the long haul. If it were to be victory for them, which I am very sure it will not, it will be a Pyrrhic victory. A victory in which you use more than necessary to achieve. But it is not going to come. Because the day they will start making it clear to us who they really want, and also they can also hide behind another person by saying, tumpatie huyo, knowing that person is coming from a very small community that they can push out. Let me tell you something. When President Uhuru Kenyatta set out to support Raila Odinga, Kenyans were fooled to think that there is suddenly some love between him and Raila Odinga, that there's some debt that he wants to repay. No. President Uhuru Kenyatta wanted to remain in power. How did he want to remain in power? He wanted to remain in power like Putin, by coming up with an executive prime minister position, using something he concocted called BBI. But he knew Raila Odinga was desperate to be president. So he told him, son of Jaramogi, I will make you the president of Kenya with my support. But there's a little catch which I know you can take. Let's change the constitution to have an executive prime minister, and I will be the executive prime ministers, and you are the president. But President William Ruto saw them and said, these are dynasties, they want to remain in power. But the loser in all that was Raila Odinga, because he was being lied to. In the BBI, there was additional 70 seats for MPs. Those 70 seats, more than a half of them, were going to go to President Uhuru Kenyatta's strongholds. And that would have haunted Kenya for a long time to come. But with the effort, stamina, strength, and boldness of President William Ruto, he stopped that in the bud. And BBI failed. When BBI failed, Uhuru Kenyatta stopped supporting Raila for the presidency. He could just not tell the public that he has changed his mind. But because he was no longer going to remain in power, he was no longer going to be the executive prime minister that he wanted, who would form government, and he would remain in government, and by extension, his community will be in power for another 10 years, making it 30. But let me tell you, everything has a flip side. They want to use the numbers of their community, even without the permission of their community. Because I'm sure the ordinary Kikuyu, if you meet him in the streets, he would really want Kenya to be stable and resources shared among communities. But there are certain leaders who don't believe in that, and they are the ones bringing in this narrative. They go to the streets telling Kenyans that we are going to commemorate the 2024 Gen Z uprising. When we commemorate days, when major events took place, like Madaraka Day, Jamhuri Day, Mashujaa Day, we go to stadia, we call our leaders, we call entertainment, we sing, dance, and our leaders address us. That is how we commemorate days. But this one of commemorating days on the street is a sinister motive.
I'm hearing you, Mwalimu. That ordinary Kenyan who is seated on his back at home is asking himself that all these things that you are saying, we have heard them before. But he's asking them himself or herself that how do they interpret this? Because their business has been looted. Women have been raped on the streets. A lot of things have happened. Yes. They want to understand what exactly is going on.
Let me tell you, the people behind this thing want something so big to them that they don't care if their women are raped. They don't care if their people's businesses are brought down. They don't care if their people suffer. They are using Gen Zs like a person would use a small child as a suicide bomber. You give a little young beautiful girl a package containing a bomb to take to a leader you want to kill. The leader sees the little girl running and says, wow, beautiful, and says, this is innocent. The girl does not know she's carrying a bomb. The leader does not know that the girl is carrying a bomb. But there are people watching from somewhere to detonate the bomb using a remote. The Gen Zs are being used in a similar way. They believe we are young Kenyans who have seen the light, who wants change. Change from what? The new Gen Zs do not know what we are changing from, because when Uhuru Kenyatta and Kibaki were presidents, they were still too young to see how Kenya is governed. So this is the first one they are seeing, and they are being told it's bad. Anything has a bad side.
I want to ask you, Mwalimu.
I want to answer you.
We saw the kind of murder that took place during Uhuru's time. You know, the Luos that were being pulled from the houses in Nyalenda, in Kondele, they were butchered. In 2022, during Matiang'i's time, we saw Luos being killed. People were killed in Kibra. You remember. You were not in the moon, neither were you in the US.
I was here, right?
You were here. How comes we never saw Kenyans coming out to demand justice for them?
That helps me answer the question. There is a community here whose leaders, not the community, whose leaders think they are the only one who can govern this country. They see other people as lesser human beings to govern this country. Let me tell you, this is not the worst atrocity we have seen done to a people. There were Kianjokoma brothers killed by police, 2 sons of a mother. We didn't go to the streets. We didn't demand justice. We didn't protest, as apart from small protests in his home. That was not all. There was baby Pendo, an angel who does not know what politics is, did not even know what was going on. And this killing started from 1969 in Kisumu, the massacre that school children in uniform were torn with bullets. And if we have to go back and demand justice in this country, we must even implement the Ndunguland report and all those other things. Because we are all Kenyans. We have to be free and fair. In this country, we fought on the streets, in offices, and everywhere to bring in a new constitution that will make everything doable without going to the streets. We thought we were going to the streets for the first and last time to spill blood so that in the future, if we think the police has made a mistake and the government is not prosecuting them, we go to court ourselves using that very constitution. That constitution created officers that oversight the police, that oversight everybody else. That constitution made the judiciary autonomous. And today, the president or the government can ban live broadcasting now and you run to court. How come these other issues, they don't run to court, they want to run to the streets? Because the motive is not that reason they are giving you. That reason they are giving you can be canvassed in courts. But the one they want of removing the president can only be canvassed in the streets using numbers. That's why there was a hashtag, Siri ni numbers. We can see them hiding behind a blade of grass. Those leaders who want to misuse the Kikuyu Hoipoloi. Those leaders who want to misuse the Gen Zs. This organization is not even called Gen Zs. The Gen Zs are just being used as a smokescreen. They have a name for it, they have not told us. I listened to something called the Limuru 3 Conference. And I could listen to the vitriol being poured on the ruling class. The vitriol being poured on the President William Ruto as a person. And the media is part of the conspiracy. Incidentally, yesterday I had a very senior media person from CNN telling the world that the house on the hill, which is State House, is Ruto's house. That is how bad it has become. He was reporting things that his cameraman was not seeing. That there's tear gas all over here and his cameraman was not showing us any tear gas. He was telling us that the people are being killed and they were not there. But he refused to tell the world through CNN who had put stones on the road.
But Molini,
he refused to tell the world, show the world the pictures of policemen being chased with stones and beaten. He refused to show the world a police vehicle, armored car being stoned by irate groups. But he still told the world that the protests were peaceful. But the photos we are seeing, there was no peace.
but we were able to see Kenyans being brutalized. Over 16, according to Reuters and BBC, 16 Kenyans fell dead. I mean, there is no single officer who was killed yesterday by protesters.
My brother, in this country, Kenyans will celebrate if you shoot one pickpocket. How they don't want to celebrate when a person looting a whole supermarket is killed, when a person stoning a police woman on the head when she has run into the safety of a truck. How a policeman is not supposed to shoot a man carrying a weapon called a panga and facing him. They don't want to celebrate because that is a person who has been sent by whoever sent him to go and ensure that they throw the government out of office. Let us be fair. When I saw what was happening, where I sit, if it was even in the United States, more people would have died. If it was in Uganda, more people would have died. If it was in Rwanda, more people would have died. If it was in Tanzania, more people would have died. It is only in Kenya where you go complaining. You know, the media has been telling us how 60 people died during the Gen Z protest. But when they are now confronted to bring the list, they bring in pictures of about 6 or 7. President William Ruto is very tolerant. That I can tell you. If it were me there, I would come and tell Kenyans the day before the elections.
Tolerant
you face the policeman with a stone, your family will collect your body. You go and loot people's hard-earned resources, your family will collect your body. Because the police are outnumbered. And they have brought the whole of Kiambu into town, the whole of Murang'a into town, the whole of Nyeri into Nairobi through Thika Road. And you want to butcher the police, but when the police even pushes you back, you hear people complaining, why are you pushing him back? What celebrations are done in the city center? And we have stadia, and we have halls, and we have open fields. And when you are going to complain, they tell you about Article 37. Article 37 envisioned a peaceable,
47.
unarmed procession where you are taking a petition to a government official. Let me give you an example of a peaceful and unarmed procession. It is the Catholic. You've seen them when they are doing that thing of theirs. But walking from Westlands to town, carrying those
But they are not
reeds.
killed. They are not doing it because their young
Yes,
ones have been killed.
so-
They are doing it as a way of worship.
Yes, but even this one, the Constitution did not want you to do it as rioting. They want you to do it peacefully.
Let me ask you.
Let me tell you, where there is noise, forget about weapons, forget about touching cars, forget about blocking roads, forget about fire on the road. Noise is not peace. That you need to know. But so even the moment there is noise, it is not peaceful the way described in the Constitution. So from the time protests began in 2023, 2024, 2025, there has never been a peaceful protest. So the protests we have ever had are all against the Constitution.
How would they be according to the Constitution when it is the government that wakes up early to go and block the roads, all the way from Donholm, from Thika Road, from Ngong Road, so that they are able to bar these protesters from getting town? How would they present even the petitions that they are having?
I have looked at what we are talking about. I never saw, not only a roadblock, any form of blockade. I saw the blockade we had in 2017 when the election was in dispute. Roads were blocked using large trucks. There was no blockage. People drove from Thika Road to town. The stones you saw on the road were put by the protesters brought from Kiambu and Murang'a. There was no blockade on Jogo Road. There was no blockade on Naivasha Road, Mombasa Road, or Ngong Road. There was nothing. The police got out to take care of property. But because the hashtag was the Siri in numbers, that was the Siri to overwhelm the police. And the previous 2 protests were meant to gaslight the police into believing you are not even supposed to push protesters. To gaslight the police, believing that even when your life is in danger, you are not supposed to fire. And let me tell you, my brother, that is the mistake we are making. I want the president himself, not even Murkomen, not even the IG, to come and tell the police that when your life is in danger, save it by whichever way you can.
Including killing?
Because that woman who was being stoned in a truck would have easily died. That man who was attacked from behind on Thika Road would have easily died. He didn't even know if that guy would take his gun or whatever it was and use it on him. And they restrained themselves. I listened to an American policeman briefing the protesters the day before they protest. And he told them, if you throw a brickbat at an officer, we will call your family to come and take your body. If you point a gun at an officer, we will call your family to come and pick your body. If you run away from arrest, you will have to go to jail. That is how firm and ruthless they are.
I hear you. In the spirit, Mwalimu, sorry for interjecting, of moving this conversation forward because of time, we have heard you, and we've heard the Minister for Interior, Kipchumba Murkomen, lamenting that some people were there to topple the government, to overthrow the government, and then he's going back to the people so desperate. The same way people are also very desperate. If these people want to overthrow the government, why not arrest them and charge them in court instead of going back to the people to lament together with them?
I think where they got it wrong, they are my bosses, I don't need to put, where they got it wrong is they downgraded the police force. The police must be encouraged. They must be allowed to use force to protect property. Use force to protect property. Use force to ensure either the protest is peaceable and unarmed like the law requires, or if they cannot maintain peace, then they disperse it using force and enough force to disperse it. Let me tell you, an African and human beings generally, the moment you yield 1 meter, they want 2. You yield 2 meters, they want 5. You yield 5, they want everything. And that is what they have shown us since this protest began. I told you they once wanted the finance bill to be amended. When it was amended, they wanted it to be thrown out altogether. When it was thrown out, they wanted President William Ruto must go. That is when they woke up and then blocked.
And he's scared.
But they have returned the same route. And let me tell you, once these people have decided they don't like you, you will never please them by appointing their whole community into government. You will never please them by giving them all the development that is available. There is no amount of pleasing that you will do. Because what they want you to live for them is bigger than any of that. And people are inherently selfish. So what I would ask the president to do, put your foot down. There was a man called President Daniel Arap Moi.
You want him to be a dictator?
That is not a dictator. That is being firm. There was a man called President Daniel Arap Moi. He started being very nice, like Ruto is nice. Then the tribalists and selfish tribalists decided that they want to overthrow him because they think he was a lesser being. When he came back after the coup, Kenya became peaceful until he left in the year 2000. Because in Africa, people sometimes will support you not because they like you. They will have to support you because they fear you. In Africa, you must sell fear and love in equal measure. But if you think that you are going to do things that they love you, you will think they love you, but they still want to come and give you a dagger in your chest. So we must use. The police has a mandate in the Constitution to protect life and property. And the life they must protect first is their own. And at what time do they protect that life? That time they are performing their mandate that the Constitution has given them. But this youth you see here that are being sent, some of them have been paid. They will take you too far. But I'm also worried because I also believe some people in the very government and in the very police force are co-conspirators in this conspiracy. That is true.
And you think the president is not aware of that?
I do not even understand why they were allowed to do commemoration in the street because somebody gaslighted them by telling them Article 37 allows us. Article 37 was not put in the Constitution as a sport. Ya kunyoza mizuli. Hakuna. It was put there when you have a clear grievance where the government is not acting. That is why it goes ahead to say you take your petition to the relevant government.
Permit me to interject.
Allow me.
We saw the former, the Attorney General Emeritus. We've seen saying that the president is bad. We've seen the former CJ Maraga himself. And we saw him with some of the families, the women whose children were murdered, were butchered on the streets last year. They were tear gas. They were not armed. If you are saying that these people are Kikuyus, is Maraga a Kikuyu? He was on the street.
There are two things which you must know. There are those ones who join because others are there. Then there are those ones who also want the very seat that the president is sitting on. Then there are those ones who are paid to do what they are doing. Because this thing is a big thing. The businessmen, the rich people have come together to bring good money to take power off President William Ruto. These things I'm saying are big. Nobody would ever say them. It's only me who can tell you. So, in fact, Maraga, I really sympathize with him because he has spoiled his demeanor, which was as good almost like Kibaki's. Somebody who was accepted across the divide. But if he has also started going to the street, he has forgotten that the opportunity we gave him to the CJI is what brought him to the limelight, and he's wasting that away. He already had a beautiful legacy of being the only other African judge to ever reject a presidential election.
It is not lost on us, Mwalimu, that the same President William Ruto that you are praising to be as good as an angel is the same one whose government has been accused of abducting young people, you know. Part of the women that were that took to the streets were doing so because their children were abducted. Some of them have not been found to date. Now, we saw police walking side by side with goons. Are you saying that that is allowed?
First of all, don't ask me many questions at a time. I want to answer them all. I don't want one to be left, then you say he evaded this. First of all, since I sat here, I have not praised Ruto that is as good as an angel. I have only been attacking those who think he's not fit to govern. So yet he's better than all the 4 other presidents we have ever had. It is during Kibaki, the one we keep on being reminded about, that the media was told, if you rattle a snake, expect to be bitten. That was Michuki, Kibaki's CS for Interior. Michuki also ordered the police to shoot the Maasai on sight in Enosupukia because they were having clashes with the Kikuyu. We are not lost on that. It was during Kibaki that we had the Anglo-Lism, but they keep on popping his name like he was an angel. You also asked me something else.
Yes, about the goons who were accompanied.
Let me tell you something.
With police.
I listened to fellow leaders saying, oh, we didn't do it, we did it, we didn't do it. For me, my take is very simple. In this country, there are 2 political formations: the pro-government and the anti-government. If the anti-government are looking for flimsy reasons to go onto the streets, to destroy life and property, to depict government as a bad government, we, the pro-government, will also go and bring our people onto those very streets so that they know the government also has supporters. We are not going to ask the government to do it.
And you think that is
we,
right?
the pro-government, huh?
You think that is right?
An African, you fight fire with fire. Otherwise, I told you, you give him 2 meters, he wants 4. You give him 4, he wants 10. You give him 10, he wants everything.
But it failed. The use of goons that were being supported by
I am
police,
not even
failed.
saying goons
Where
were
they?
used. I am saying what I would do.
Whether you said or not, Mwalimu,
But
we saw
even
goons
if
walking side by
let
side
me tell you,
with police officers, and it is not right.
Let me tell you, the goons were not walking side by side with. I told you, co-conspirators in this game are the media. If you time me going to bypass somebody and you take the photos, that time I'm about to pass it, what do you think the people will be seeing? They will be seeing 2 people walking side by side. Even if you take that photo for 2 minutes, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, what the people see is 2 groups walking side by side. The police had no reason to arrest those people when there were some other people who are pretending not to be armed and were causing more damage. They were pulling down every dustbin in town, breaking shops and stealing. Why would the police waste their time on somebody carrying a barakoa and is not doing any damage? Let us not be gaslighted into believing anything we were doing is wrong. We are not going to accept that anywhere. And it is not the government who took them to the streets, But there are politicians who did. Just like this other one are sponsored by politicians. Rigathi Gachagua once told us he's the leader of GenZ, and it is on record. And this GenZ is to hoodwink Kenyans. And if there is a protest that is tribal, it is the one of yesterday. Everybody coming into town was coming from Kiambu Road and Thika Road. There were no people on Ngong Road until evening. There were no people on Mombasa Road. There were no people on Waiyaki Way. Because these people have decided. And if you listen to them talking privately, in weddings, then you will be shocked. If you see a protest that is not in Kisumu, is not in Migori, is not in Eldoret, is in Nakuru, is in Olkalou, is in Nyeri, is in Kiambu, and is on Thika Road, that is a Kikuyu protest. It is not a Kenyan protest. So telling us it is Kenyan is to wink us. I am calling these things by name because nobody would, because people fear being called tribalist. I will call tribalism by name. Because they have been gaslighting us. When you call it by name, they say you are the one who is tribal. No, I am not. But I know tribalism when I see it. Najua ukabila nikiiona hapa.
Tell me, Mwalimu, you have accused the media of fueling this kind of violence. But those people who killed Albert Ojwang, were they sent by the media?
But they are not. Let me tell you, I have watched the way the media is reporting. Even today in the morning, I sat in a media house and saw the way the English service was reporting. They were not showing us the policemen who were being beaten by the protesters.
Mwalimu,
they were not showing us the stones being thrown at police vehicles. They were not showing us a policewoman. And they were right there.
I hear you, Mwalimu.
But they are telling us how the protest was peaceful. I have never known the definition of peaceful, if that is what the media is telling us.
Mwalimu, I'm a journalist by training.
I know.
For your information, that I know you know. May I remind you that as
hata hapa kwako tunaongea ni media.
Yes. As journalists, we don't owe the government a positive story.
I am not talking on behalf of the government.
Yes, it is not.
I am talking on the behalf of Kenyans who have seen the conspiracy.
If the government goes on the streets and brutalizes young people, kills them, brutalize them, does all sorts of things that we are seeing, as media we will report it the way it is. Why is the government so afraid of everybody?
The media is not reporting it the way it is. On the eve of the so-called memorial protests, I saw a media house until 3 a.m. in the night. They were still promoting the protests and calling it peaceful, and it has not even happened. It is like calling a child a boy and it is not yet born. Didn't I see it? Go and review. They are calling it peaceful, it's not happened. You hear somebody who has been flown to Kenya to come and report, and is Kenyan, is telling people that the police is beating peaceful people. At that point, his camera is showing tires burning on the road. He's showing stones on the road. He's showing a woman being chased by men. And he's telling the world, I think even the editors at his media house out there must be wondering what kind of person it is. And when he's asked what is the government saying or doing about it, and then he uses language like, the government has a habit. What kind of reporting is that? I am not a journalist, but I have been watching journalists report since I was born. Now I am 57. And what I saw is not what it is. Don't come to report here when you're already biased. In fact, my take is this. In future, when we are going to have a protest in this country, let us have observers who will sit, look at what is going on TikTok, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the ground, and compare it with what the Kenyan media is trying to make us believe. And in any case, the Kenyan media know very well the international community and media are monitoring the local media to find out what is happening. But you can tell when somebody is reporting something with a bias from the language he uses, from his choice of words.
Who would be the greatest observer than a live broadcast? that brings it the way it is, as it is happening, and the government decides to
Exactly.
shut down that.
Exactly, my brother. A camera cannot cover the whole city at a go. And those signals go into the control room. And the control room chooses what to show the country. My friend, I know how the media operates.
So do we allow the government to run the media?
And when you look at the headlines, especially from one media house on Mombasa Road, they are print media. They are lucky it is President William Ruto who is the president. We would shut them down. In fact, if I was President William Ruto by now, I would be contemplating suspending the constitution to bring sanity in this country. Because we can't have women crying every morning after a protest that they have lost the whole shop, something they have spent money on for years, that they have lost the whole livelihood, that they have lost children for something that could be canvassed in a court of law. Why did we fight for the new constitution? If we can't go to court, we go to the streets. Why?
Thank you, Mwalimu. Because of time, as we are winding up, your friend, I don't know whether to call him your friend or the former CS, Fred Matiang'i, is not happy with President William Ruto's government for brutalizing young Kenyans. Matiang'i is mad. He's complaining.
Can we talk about Matiang'i?
Yeah,
During Matiang'i, we pulled bodies from River Yala, covered nicely and thrown in there. That is a systematic murder. Not incidental murders like happened during GenZ protests. That means you taken, murdered all the time to put them together and throw them in a river. That should not talk where people are talking. It is during Matiang'i that court orders were obeyed as a policy. It is Matiang'i who took one man called Miguna and sent him to Canada, and he knows very well Miguna was born in Ahero and went to Wanjiko High School and went to the University of Nairobi and lives in Rwanda. Matiang'i woke up one morning and said all school buses will be yellow without public participation. Woke up one morning and said police uniform will be blue without public participation. How can he talk where sane people are talking? If he wants to be sanitized, he needs to come and confess to Kenyans and say, I have found salvation. But he can't go criticizing a person he once called all sorts of names when the person was demanding justice.
I hear you. Mwalimu, as we conclude, there are information and conversation that we are likely to have another big, huge protest on commemoration of Sabasaba Day. That is next month on 7th of July. And it's going to be big.
By who? Let's start from there.
By the same people who did
Same
what
people.
happened on 25th.
Can we hypothetically say by Gen Zs?
Yes.
Do you know when Sabasaba took place?
Yes.
Which year was it? Sabasaba. The Matiba, the...
It was 1992, if I'm not wrong.
How many years ago was that? How many Gen Zs now were born then? What do they know about it? And if they want to dig into history, then we don't have to go back to Sabasaba. We go back to 1969, because that is where small children died. Sabasaba, no children died. Let's not play with us. Kenya belongs to all of us. And we are not going to cherry pick what we want to use. Is it because Sabasaba was a Mateba Rubia thing? Wasitulete Bwana Kenya ni ya sisi zote. And we must share all its resources equally and equitably, irrespective of whether you are a Turkana, or a Kalenjin, or a Luo, or a Masai, or a Kamba, or a Digo, or a Borana. We are all Kenyans, or a Somali Kenyan. But some people cannot say Syrian in numbers. They would wink us here sometimes back and said we have tyranny of numbers. And Juja with 100,000 votes, we were getting 110,000 votes. Tharaka Nithi with 90 votes, we are not going to accept this nonsense. There is no time. This small clique of Kikuyu leadership has not stolen power. Jaramogi gave it to them willingly in 1963. And they betrayed him. In 1966, they had something called Removal 1. Not only to remove Jaramogi from being VP, but also to block him from taking over from Kenyatta. In 1992, Jaramogi brought up something called Ford. The people who scuttled Ford and made it not defeat Moi was Rubia and Matiba. Right? In 2002, Jaramogi's son Raila Odinga took the ailing Kibaki and gave him onto the seat of power. As soon as he entered the State House, he locked Raila out. That is betrayal number what? In 2005, Kibaki dissolved cabinet and no laws went back except one. In 2007, Raila beat Kibaki hands down. The Kikuyu leadership did not think Aluo can be president. They told him, you are a Kihi. You cannot be president. And they saw Kibaki at night in State House, led by the now Martha Karua, who wants to play holy as Justice Minister. That is 2007. Approaching 2012, when we are supposed to have an election in which they are going to say, Raila Odinga help Kibaki be president. Kenya is for us all. Let's support him. They had a Limuru too, in which they decided son of Jaramogi must not succeed Kibaki. And they succeeded with that. In 2018, when Uhuru was about to exit, he did not want to leave power because they believe it's only them who can govern Kenya. He lied to Raila that he's going to make him president. But in actual sense, he wanted to be an executive prime minister, an equivalent of president with the powers of the president to form government. Many of us may not be intelligent enough to see this or informed enough to see this, but I will see and tell Kenyans. After that, 2022 here, that happened. But as Ruto was being sworn in, they were already plotting on how to remove him. They tried to use Raila to remove him, using that so-called B. It was called open the server, reduce the cost of living. They knew if they removed Ruto, it would be Rigiji who would be president, because he was automatic by constitution. When that failed, they went home knowing that we have seen the weaknesses. What do? They concoct an organization called GenZ after having a conference in Limuru called Limuru 3, which was purely discussing on how to remove Ruto from office, to mobilize the community.
Tell me,
please,
what is the end game, even as we conclude this? What is the end game in all these things? I mean,
the end game, which was said in Limuru 3 in daylight in not low tones, is that if we take power this time again, no other community will take it again. That was what was said in Limuru 3. The whole thing is they want to remove President William Ruto so that they go in power and stick to it forever. That is the steal. And this is not the ordinary Kikuyu. This is the Kikuyu elite. The ones who have looted Kenya since 1963. One family has thousands of acres of land to their name. That is the people. We have to tell them the truth. And when the truth has come out, I am ready to go and leave my clansmen with the truth behind me.
And can they send him home? Can they send President Ruto home?
They are trying. I don't know where they want to reach, but let them know. Nobody can accept that his own thing be taken away from him because he's small, because he's poor, because he's young, because he's son of a peasant. No. We will fight together until we defeat people who think because they can mobilize people in large numbers, they can take what does not belong to them.
And you think that is not dangerous even as we are heading to 2027? Molima,
they have chosen,
the country is being polarized.
Let me tell you.
We are heading to another 200, to another 207.
That is what they have chosen because to them, power is bigger than life. How do you go to the streets in memory of people to go and create more deaths? Don't you think power to them is more than life? Commemoration should have gone to a stadium. You think these people didn't know people were going to die? They knew. In fact, they knew the more people who goes into the streets, the easier for them to die.
Thank you. Thank you, Mwalimu. And thank you so much for watching. It has been the People's Bench coming to you live from GenZ here in Riverside. I've been privileged to have himself, Mwalimu Odoyo Owidi. His problem is saying the truth without mincing words. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe on your YouTube at Fred Ogweno Live or at the People's Bench. Thank you and see you next time. Bye bye.